what's your reaction to the 3-game suspension as a punishment?
Well, look, they have to live with that. They might be 3-0, but it doesn't matter. You know why it doesn't matter? Because Urban Meyer's legacy is going to be determined by that 23-page report. And anybody who takes the time to read that report or ESPN.com today is going to have questions about Urban Meyer as a human being. And it doesn't matter about the 3-game suspension. It doesn't matter what Ohio State does this season, because that 23-page report is going to be what defines him and his legacy at Ohio State.
Heather, thank you for being on the show. In your estimation, what could have been done by Ohio State, by Urban Meyer yesterday that could have alleviated or flat out eradicated what you just put out there about his legacy and about what he will be remembered for? Is there anything that Ohio State or Urban Meyer could have done to alleviate just what you alluded to?
Urban Meyer could have stood in front of those cameras and those reporters, and he could have mentioned Courtney Smith by name. He could have shown some remorse, some emotion, any emotion. Instead, he stood up there and he bumbled like a teenager through a prepared statement with seemingly no genuine feelings for it whatsoever. And his boss, Athletic Director Gene Smith, apologized to Buckeye Nation. And the two of them combined failed to see that this is bigger than Buckeye Nation. And to me, both of them failed that press conference yesterday.
Heather, it's not just that he didn't bring up her name. It's that her name was brought up for him, and he intentionally didn't address her. It's one thing to not do something, that affirms it. It's another thing to be handed he's handed the opportunity to say it, and he negates it. It's worse, no?
It's absolutely. I forget his exact quote because it was irrelevant in response to the question that asked, I'm sorry we're all in this situation. Well, I'm sorry for Courtney Smith. And I wrote that today. And the fact that he couldn't even respond to that question with some sort of feeling or emotion when it's all over the 23-page report that he knew of these allegations and he knew of the arrest in 2009. How is this possible? So 3-game suspension, we go back to that? Okay, whatever. That press conference, his answers to those questions, and everything we just talked about, that's what matters, and that's what's going to define Urban Meyer.
Heather, you bring up, real quick, Molly, you bring up the 23-page report, which is damning. What do you think about the timing of the report where Ohio State doesn't release it until after Coach, AD, and university president faced the press?
That's convenient for Ohio State, isn't it? Not so convenient for me, who was reading it at 1 a.m. Look, lots of questions. And you know what's interesting about that report? The more you look at it, the more you see it's almost like the investigators wanted to have it both ways. He did the X, Y, and Z. He tried to erase his phone records from a year ago, but we can't prove that he did this, or, he knew about this, but he didn't really intentionally lie. It was a misconception of the truth, or whatever you want to call it. So it's the timing, perfect for Ohio State.
Heather, question for you here. With the Penn State and Sandusky situation, the NCAA intervened. Do you think that this punishment handed down by Ohio State and its Board of Trustees warrants the NCAA intervening and saying this penalty is not enough, it should be stronger?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I think maybe, but also, did he violate NCAA rules? Well, if you go through and look through the report, Zach Smith probably had a few red flags that the NCAA would be interested in. And if you go through there, quite frankly, there's probably things that you could fire Urban Meyer for with cause. Look, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think that the NCAA might want to look into it.
Yeah, Stephen A., I would love for the NCAA to intervene because they intervene in very frivolous matters.
That's
this
what
would
I
be
was
a
getting ready to
perfect
say.
one for them. And Heather, sorry we put you on the spot with that. We have to let you go, but I just want to know, from a female perspective, what punishment would you have liked to see? Would you want Urban to be fired or?
Well, I think at least suspend him for Big Ten games.
Okay.
At least, right?
Okay.
I don't know if he should necessarily be fired, but 3 games is not enough.
Yeah. I've seen enough for him to be fired.